Self Synthesize empowers you into a juicy, dynamic life. Check out our website at selfsynthesize.com.
Welcome, everyone, to tonight's show. This is Lisa Ferraro and your host, and I am super excited tonight to have my friend Jonathan Mozenter on with us tonight. I met Jonathan through my master's program, and he's been involved in the integral theory, which was my master's, and we've become friends along the way. And he has started this wonderful new project that I just simply had to have him come tell us about, because this show is about inspiring people, inspiring you to follow your dreams and actually launch out into what it is that you would love to do. And to move out of the box of where it's safe for you and leap forward. And Jonathan has done just that. So really looking forward to having him here this evening. And welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So, Jonathan, just for our audience's sake, would you kind of give us a background of yourself and how you got interested, even what made you start thinking about this beautiful project that you started?
I think it actually started really early for me in terms of like insights that led up to this. When I was a child, my parents are social workers, and that they gave me a more of like a psychological kind of framework through the world. And I noticed I saw the world a little bit differently than most people, and that actually the insights that I had gotten from this were very advantageous in helping me navigate in my day-to-day life. And I started to realize, everybody should have this knowledge. This shouldn't just be for people who are specialized in it. And this is like one theme that kept happening in my life. And later in my life, I got into studying organizational development, about how to make organizations change and grow. And I really delved into it. I helped create a professional group for people interested in it. And again, I had this same insight that this knowledge about how making people work together better really is knowledge that everybody should have. It's not something that should just go to specialists. And I started to get, again, this insight that this is something that's important to share. And then probably more recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, I like to check out different kind of alternative types of things. Like you both mentioned, we're really into integral, and I like to check out things on the cutting edge. And I've been looking at different kind of perspectives on the world and different spins on the news, and I started to realize that the mainstream perspective wasn't all there was to know, and there were other important things that everybody should know about. And so this theme of like important insights on the edge that were important to know and spread was a theme that kept coming up for me. And also I had throughout the years had learned I had a good skill of being able to deconstruct things and articulate them in a ways that people could really understand. And so it was these three kind of huge insights that are the kind of the formation of this project about kind of creating positive change, just taking the know-how of individual organizational change and kind of combining that with what's happening in the world today. And that's kind of the formation.
That is fantastic. I think what really excited me when I thought, listened to you and you were telling me about your project, and then even just what you've said now, the whole thing that especially what I hear, because at Self Synthesize, we are working relentlessly for empowering the individual and really helping them flower and just have a life that is just like wonderful and flowering and very content and happy and following their passion. And as I listened, and this is what I felt when I talked to you about before, is that this really beautiful heart that's coming forth in you of really helping people, of really dedicated to helping them have better lives. And like you said, making positive change. I really honoring you in that, because a lot of projects, and if you go through the world, aren't necessarily have that beginning. Why I'm doing this is for other people to have like a wonderful life and better positive change in their life. And I really honor that. That is fantastic. And Well, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what is, which of the title of your project I know in your website is Modeling the Way, but maybe you could tell us a bit more about that and how it does help people come to positive social change or personal change.
Yeah, thanks. So I like to start kind of talking about why I chose that title, Modeling the Way. Um,
Sure.
Modeling the Way means to me about kind of leadership. It's supposed to point out that all of us influence the people in our world. Everyone notices kind of what you're doing, however big or small your circle is. And I don't think a lot of people realize that they impact things and they impact people just by the way they are. So it's helping people empower, because a lot of people don't feel empowered in this world. And we have a lot more power than we even realize. And so I just want to get people to realize that just what they do really matters each and every day. It counts, and to try and be more conscious about that they can just make the world a better place and themselves better, impact people just by bringing a positive energy. So that's one part.
That's awesome. I don't mean to interrupt again, and I promise I will
Sure.
let you explain about it. But I just want to say, that's actually really amazing information. In fact, I was reading not too long ago, in fact, just the other day, that there is that concept. You're absolutely right. People don't understand that everywhere, every single person, even if you feel like you're like nothing, nobody, you don't have anything, you are making an impact. Someone is looking up to you. Everyone. And when I heard that and read that, I thought, that's really amazing. That's powerful. And like you said, I don't think people realize that every single person on the planet, whoever you are, someone somewhere in your social network is looking up to you. Isn't that's really profound, and I think you've tapped into that.
Thanks. I guess it was as far as individual, talking about being our best selves. I've really found that I rely on something called the fundamentals, and I think once we get some of our essentials down, that kind of really enables us to be at our best self. And so I take this from, I think, Brian Johnson, as somebody who's influenced me. And he just talks about meditation, daily meditation, exercise, eating healthy. It's just you kind of get these fundamental down that every day you have a very positive experience. It really makes you be at your best and in each moment. And developing these kind of healthy habits, I find, is a very big cornerstone in terms of helping each person bring out the best of themselves.
Oh, that's fabulous. So tell us more about your project. It's really interesting me. You've got me walking down the street with you because I'd love to let everyone know what they're doing so they can, the later find you and get inspired.
Right. So the project, Modeling the Way, and is going to take a look at the how of change. It's targeted at people who are interested in making positive change, either to their own personal life or to life at large, or both. And I'm starting off kind of with fundamentals about change, about the process of change and individual change. So I actually started off with some series of videos about openness. So if you're really not open to being changed and seeing things anew, then there is no change. You're going to be the same. So it's kind of fundamental to understand what are some of the most important things about openness. For example, in the first video I did about why it's important to be open, I bring out the fact that a lot of people confuse kind of how things are in the mainstream is like the best we can do. But if you look at this thing called the S curve, you can kind of see that all the stuff that's mainstream first started off as like one person did it, and then a couple people caught on, and it kind of built on. So if you really want to be on the cutting edge and learning new kinds of techniques, you really need to pay attention to stuff that very few people are doing. And that's a lot about what my show is going to be about, or the Modeling the Way, the website and video program is about bringing these things that are on the cutting edge about change and help pushing them forward so more people can use them to bring positive change to their lives and to their communities.
That's great. So what you've done is you're kind of starting out. You've got a website that people can actually come to learn from. I've actually looked at it. So you've got some information on the site, and you've got links to videos that you've done, and where are you thinking about, like, how's your vision? Because for taking it forward, or where are you gonna go with modeling the way? Because I think this is really what's important also when people, and I've got some other questions to ask you about some of your process of starting your own thing. But a lot of times when people think about, oh, I want to follow my passion or whatever, they really get, first of all, the first step is the hardest step, or the hardest step. And then they get going, but they haven't really carried out a bigger vision. So then they get kind of bogged down after they got the initial, event going, or thing going. And then there wasn't a greater vision to actually kind of keep moving them forward. And I'd love for you to talk about that, and like how you did that, and how that, helping you in your process.
Okay, there's a couple of questions in there. So I'll first start off talking about like the greater vision, and then we can circle back and talk about kind of getting started. So the greater vision is to kind of, yes, I have kind of a website and a YouTube channel with kind of educational videos about change, and where people can go and build their skills. But the longer term goal is to kind of build more of a community, and where it can be a place not only where you get the skills, but then we can get together and try and solve real problems. So I'm looking at it as, in the beginning, focusing more on kind of some skill building, but then it's going to be a lot of applications. So we'll take different topics, both individual and larger contextual problems, and kind of apply all these theories to it, so we can see how people can apply it on a micro scale and a as well as macro scale as well. So there's going to be a lot of community building, a lot of probably building forums, kind of groups, workshops. So it's that's kind of how I see
Wow.
that holding. And also, I have to admit that once I, as somebody who's getting into something and has studied a lot of entrepreneurship, I also know that it's important to kind of be open and doing a lot of listening. So I feel like, especially I'm in a very new stage, so I think it's really important to kind of have be grounded in a really where you want to go. Like, I know I'm about creating positive change and the process of change, but then also do a lot of listening to how people are responding to and what the world needs. And so there's an adaptive process here where I'm going to be constantly getting feedback in various forms and adjusting, and I kind of have a direction on where it's going, but ultimately I know it's going to adjust and flourish, because it's not just about me, it's about me and everyone else who would be part of my tribe.
That is great. Would you guys actually end up then, as a community, then doing and initiating projects that would be maybe community, and then maybe a larger community, or maybe even global? Is that something even on your radar? Or, because that sounds like a fantastic, forum for getting some projects going.
Yeah, that's definitely the long-term goal. And I should probably circle back with, because I can tell you kind of what I'm really, really good at. And I mentioned before that I had started a professional group for people interested in organizational development, kind of in my early to mid 20s. And it was through that experience that I learned I'm really good at bringing together a lot of very diverse people and kind of helping them and kind of making it work, and kind of being like a producer, visionary, and kind of adapting to the group. So I see this, although it's starting out with me and my energy, I'm a very collaborative person. So I see bringing in a lot of different people. I have a lot of interest and a lot of connections from that. And so it's going to be much more than me. It's going to be me bringing other experts, and kind of, I do like to synthesize information from many different people. And that's, part of my, like, how I manifest new things, by taking things from other places and coming up with something new. So I see that's going to be a big part of modeling the way.
That's great. Well, of course, I relate to that too, because I'm very similar in that way. I've just done it in a slightly different way, right? But the same thing. In fact, even the name of my company is Self Synthesize. So I love that vision. That is awesome. And then, yes, I'd love to circle back to that second part of the question, which is like this getting started, like how the process you went for, that you went through, and how you got past the different obstacles that, and maybe even describing some of the obstacles that you faced along the way for our audience, because I would love for them to hear, because that's really teaching them. Talk about modeling. You're now modeling for people, because these are some of the things that always I found hold people back. And you did it. You leapt forward and did it. And I am like super thrilled if you could help and share some advice in your journey with that getting started and obstacles with our audience.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And it was not an easy journey. It really took a lot of hard work, and still is an ongoing work. Definitely, had this kind of vision for a long time, and I've been talking about it, but have unable to kind of pull it all together. And I kind of had to ask myself a lot of hard questions about why that was so. Ultimately, I learned that my weakness of myself was focused and setting limits and boundaries on myself, and really kind of choosing just one path. I had so many hobbies and friends, etc. I had a lot of different things that were very positive in my life, but I knew if I wanted to create this, I actually had to learn to let that go. And meditation actually played a really big role in that, because certainly some of these patterns had developed, way back in childhood. And I started taking through the integral theory. There was a meetup group in Boston, and one of the people there had told me about a fabulous meditation course that was right in Boston. This guy, Dan Brown, who teaches Ma Mudra and Dogen meditation. And through that kind of class, I've been kind of slowly, because I'm very ADD and my mind was very not focused, and it was very, very difficult for me. But I stuck through it. I kind of had a faith that if I kept doing it, I could build my focus, and it definitely worked. I've been doing it about 4 years, and every day religiously in the morning, 20 minutes. And that is very powerful, because what the meditation does a lot of things, but one of the most important things it does is it really gives you kind of space between your impulses and actually making a decision, because you're kind of practicing on having some distance between your thoughts. And that's just really huge, because it helps me get more mindful about what's really going on for me, both analyzing a situation, but also what's going on in my head. And it helps to make better decisions moment to moment, because it's, as I kind of mentioned before, it's all about habit and what we do every moment, day to day. And so this really helps with that, getting it habits. And I think we talked about integral before. Integral was really helpful for me by the time I got into it. A lot of the stuff in the theory was familiar, but one of the areas that really, really added tons of value for me was this idea about meditative state development and the different stages. I had no idea about any of this, and it's a really powerful thing to kind of be operating from this kind of deeper place. And it also sort of helped me understand spirit. I had always been not really understood that word spiritual. I thought it was very mushy for a long time, and I didn't really know what it meant. It seemed to have a lot of different meanings, but it was really through the integral and through the meditation where that idea of spirit really kind of helped define it for me in a really meaningful way. Kind of through meditation, you realize that you have thoughts, but then you can also watch your thoughts, the observer, and that deeper part of yourself. I've come to recognize it as kind of more like my deeper self or spiritual self. And that's the voice that been practicing to really hone into and listen to and operate from as much as possible. And that meditation really, really helps that as well. And the meditations even goes beyond that, because it really teaches you how the brain actually works and the traps of the brain. And they have all sorts of exercises that help you transcend those traps. So it's very powerful. It's been definitely one of the important high leverage things I've done in my life.
Wow, that's amazing. Hey, listen, we're going to need to go to a commercial break, and we'll come back. It's just a brief break. We'll come back find out how people where they can find you, how to get to you. And then I want to continue on with this because what you are just really highlighting is profound. And I want to let everyone know. I'm going to highlight a few things of that and then let you continue on with like how some of the things, your struggles and obstacles and how you overcame them, which you're kind of giving us a piece now, which is very amazing. And especially you've just touched into the spiritual, which I'd like to get into a little bit. Jonathan, how can people get a hold of you? If you wouldn't mind maybe giving out your contact or how the best way for them to reach you now.
Yeah, the website is modelingtheway.com, or on YouTube, my username is modeling the way. The website's probably the best place to go to. I got also links to my Facebook page and Twitter. It's the central hub. There's a way to sign up for a newsletter to get all the latest posts.
Wonderful. So again, that was modelingtheway.com. And we should have it up on our Blog Talk Radio page here that you've come to that where we've announced, and we'll have this archived to this show so you can come back and listen to it and also find out more information about Jonathan. Well, I wanted to just highlight something really profound that he is describing, and that is that his part of this journey that has allowed him to come forth with this beautiful project, which is like awesome. He's began the journey of his own inward journey, of his own grounding, of his own, developing that inner presence, that through meditation, and really coming into that sense of how that relates even spiritually, or the sense of his own inner spirit, because we all have that. And I think that is so beautiful, because there are not a lot of people that have actually, because I've interviewed a lot of people about doing their own project, doing their own thing, and I'm not sure there's been a lot of people that have talked about their journey coming from this beautiful inner strength, this beautiful inner journey to the self a bit. And that's beautiful, Jonathan. I'm deeply honoring of that. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about that whole spiritual aspect and how that comes in and came into play for you to get started and then overcome some of your obstacles along the way.
Thanks, Lisa. I think I'll credit some of my parents from just luckily they always from the beginning have always said, check, what do you, they kind of ask me, well, what do you want? Check in with yourself. And so that process of trying to figure out what resonates with me and resonates with me deeply is a pattern that's been there from very early on, from the beginning. So I'm kind of very fortunate that way. But certainly that's something, because you get a lot of signals in life, through the culture and media and religion and friends and peers, and so it's easy just to lose that, and it's important to kind of make time and space and really figure out what it is that you really want. I think another part of that is also just getting confident in that and not really caring as much about what other people. People, I think, are always going to judge people. Doesn't mean that you should be a jerk or a bad person or anything, but people are always judging things based on how they're trying to validate their own ego for the most part. That's how a lot of people are. And so you have to learn to let that go and really see what resonates with you in the most, because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, I believe what makes people feel the most fulfilled is aligning their life with their deepest self, their deepest vision of who they are and their values. So it's important to sort of identify for yourself what those values are and those visions, and for some people that they know that already, and a lot of people don't, and that's okay. I think it's like everything life is a process, it's a journey, and people just need to accept where they are and understand that in time, if you keep asking these deeper questions, that kind of information is going to come from within. and so that's a process for everyone. I strongly encourage to definitely do that. And then it's kind of like mapping what your deepest self is. I think there's another important part with mapping your deepest values also, with what's kind of happening in the world. I think that's an important part too. Trying to find, they always say entrepreneurship is that marriage between, what are your deepest passions, what are you really good at, and what does the world need? And so I think awareness is such a big part. So being self-aware of the spiritual side, and then what kind of skills you either already have and want to leverage, or maybe ones you might need in order to get to where you want to go. And then where's the world at, and what kind of how can you align those? And I think just being aware, constantly trying to be aware of how those different areas are is a very important part of making somebody be able to bring their passions and spirit to life.
Wow. And again, before you keep going forward, because I definitely want you even to keep sharing more. And but that is, again, need to highlight. These are just profound things you're saying, Jonathan. I don't know if you realize it, but these are awesome. And listen, what he said is that not be afraid to ask the questions. I think there's a lot of people that have not even began to ask those questions. It's as if they kind of move through. I've found that as some people that have interfaced with me here at Self Synthesize, is that they haven't even thought about that they could even ask those questions. Like the thought to ask those questions has never arisen. It's just they were modeled a certain way by their their family, their the environment of the family, and then all these kind of different organizations or perhaps religious organizations that their family were involved with, and so, or their community and what was modeled. So there was not really this even thought of, oh, well, yeah, that questions about myself and what am I and what would make me happy, and and is there a different way maybe, and I think that is beautiful, because you're right. We can't even begin to find that, because fulfillment, as you said, is really from the inside. So you can't even begin to even get back inside, to even turn back to look inside without even asking those questions. That is kind of the first step. And so, yeah, again, beautiful, Jonathan. Really deep understanding you're sharing. Thank you. So I just needed to drop in that. So continue, my friend.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I guess I'm thinking about as I'm kind of structuring some of my project kind of moving forward, and some of the things I'm going to be teaching, I think that it have really fueled my growth. I think one important concept is this idea of baby steps. Really, people kind of have these huge dreams and expectations, or that they realize that it's all about like what you do, the like moment to moment and habits. And so it's really sort of being able to break down these dreams into smaller steps, and literally figure out what you're going to do each day or what each hour, and break it down into smaller steps is such an important factor. And also just to be patient with yourself. There's going to be a lot of people you're going to obviously have times where things aren't going to go well. And I've learned that it's really important to have the right way to take that in. I call this the continuous learning mindset. And what it means is I say to myself, I go through life knowing that I did the best I could, but I could also realize that I could always do better. And the reason why I hold those, well, you think those may be a polarity there, but it's a really important balance, because the first part allows you to kind of say, yeah, hey, that was probably the best I was going to do in that moment, given that context. And you kind of like get through any guilt, which allows you to do the second part, which was like, yeah, I guess since you can always do a little bit better, it can't hurt to reflect and see what I can take away from that. So any kind of step backwards or thing that could be perceived as an error or mistake, I really try and just reframe that as an opportunity, a teaching lesson, something I can pull out of it to go forward. And that's really important, because life is filled with obstacles, and and everyone experiences them all the time. And so you got to have a way to move through those productively. So that's a very important part, I think.
Yeah, totally. And when you said that the reframe, so what is that moment? Because I know that's definitely something that I also work with people to be able to do in the moment when they suddenly get into maybe an obstacle, or I would say sometimes a downward spiral, right?
Hmm.
We've all been in those places where we start heading down there. And it's like you said, to reframe that. Now, question, how did you do that? Were you able to do just as, like, help for our listeners? Were you able to do that in the moment when you were, or how were you looking at the overall thing later, stepping back, coming and saying, okay, now let me see if I can see it another way? What is that process for you that you went through in reframing?
Yeah, I mean, I think when this is like a skill or a habit. So I think the goal is to be able to do it. You get better and better at it. So when at the peak, when you get really good at it, it just happens kind of instantaneously. But when you're in the beginning, it happens much less frequently, and you really need to set a time, aside. So it's kind of like, what are the baby steps to kind of build this habit? If this isn't something that's already part of your life, it could be like a daily journal. You can do some, start do some gratitude stuff, and then also just making that space. You really need to carve the space out. Sometimes having different people to talk to, that I'm a big fan of asking for help, and I always have worked with different people to work on with different skills, or therapists, coaches. I strong believe that we all need help to get better. That's something I continue to believe in and continually use in my life. So that's another way to kind of help build the practices, to kind of do it with someone else. You can foster these kind of relationships with close friends or romantic partners, and build space in there to help you. So that there's all different ways, and different people are different. So I throw out different ideas because different things might resonate with different people. But it just starts with kind of being intentional. Okay, I'm going to try and get a more positive perspective on this. And also another thing is meditation. And there's a very common practice. You kind of Most people meditate know the practice of where you follow the breath and you just try not to think. But then when sometimes you ultimately do think, and then you learn to just go back to the breath. And so that's another way of kind of building the practice of, yeah, you're gonna fall off the horse at a time, but then you can kind of get back and keep going. It's okay. This is part of life. It's sort of a metaphor for life in general. So those are some different tactics to implement that kind of strategy.
Yeah, and what I hear going through really everything you've said from the beginning, everything from just your own process, what led you to modeling the way, how you begin to vision modeling the way, then how you overcome your obstacles, how you worked through the things that would stop you along the way. It all has a very common theme, and that theme is really supporting yourself in a healthy way, creating healthy habits, like you said, with diet, with your meditation practice, beginning to look inside, beginning to take that journey to find out about yourself, to come into that inner joy that's really sits inside. Like you said, that's when we find our happiness, when we connect in with that deeper part of ourselves. And I think that's really interesting that from the beginning, even in your family system, you had this whole kind of foundation of positive, and really helping you in each stage of the way. And I think that is, like, Jonathan, I think you are going to do some amazing things with your site, especially because you are, that theme that just keeps showing up in everything that you say. And as you understand about how resonance works, that what you believe and what you feel and what you really focus on, you're attracting other people that are like that. and that are going to support you in that. And so it's so permeating. I can only see success down the road. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate the positive vibe, and maybe that's why we attract each other. I feel like you're definitely on the same groove, bringing that same kind of positive energy, which I greatly appreciate.
Yeah. If you were going to say and tell our audience, I would say we're kind of coming down here to the last little bit, but if you were going to talk to our audience about if they're on the fence, they're thinking about something, maybe doing something, maybe not sure. Maybe they don't even see a way, but they have like a wish, but it's maybe not deep. It's not really big wish. I mean, it's not. I'm sorry, on the surface, or they're not able to act on it. How would you advise them? What would you say to someone who's kind of thinking about their project? Like you said, you thought about it for a long time before you actually did it. What would you say to them as, looking back, advice that you would give to other people who would like to start some entrepreneurial projects?
Excellent question. Yeah, I think it's definitely a staged process. I think first off, people want to, I think, go into it. That this definitely it's possible, and I think you want to, as we're talking about this positive energy bringing to it. I think it's recognized first off as it's a process, and it's not all going to happen at once. It's just definitely take their time. Start by just putting their ideas on paper and start to writing them down and sharing them and start getting feedback. And then I'm a big fan of there's a change model that is where on the one hand you want to define where you want to go, like a vision, or start to define that, and then start to define where you're at right now. So what's relative to where you want to go? What do you need? Where are you? What skills do you have? What passions do you have? What resources do you have? And start to build an honest assessment of where you currently are and versus where you want to go. And then you can start doing what's called a gap analysis, and trying to figure out what are the things that need to happen to kind of to bridge that gap. So I think that's important. I think it's important to get a lot of feedback from very different perspectives. I think diversity of ideas is a really powerful tool for learning and growth. It's something I engage in quite often. I think if there are kind of areas where people feel kind of stuck, I think there's a really great way of thinking about that. It's like try to get in touch with the things that kind of keep you in your stuckness, and then what think about what would be some strategies to get out, and then how to. I think what people often forget, and one of the most important parts is when you start to make these changes, you need to think about what we call the how do you refreeze these behaviors, these new behaviors in. So it's really like a long-term process. It's not just about seeing the problem, coming to fix. It's how do you maintain that from the long term. So how do you set up a support system? So that's something to think about as you're trying to build your projects. Is this idea of support system? Who are the kinds of people you're going to need in your life to support you in this, whether it's emotional or financial or different skill sets. So that's another part. I'm a real big fan of thinking about leverage, and by leverage is like what are the things that really are powerful that can make a little. If you put a little energy, it makes a big difference. So as I kind of said earlier about those habits, I feel like those are high leverage habits. The meditation, the exercise gives me, if I do it in the morning, I get energy all day. If I tap into what's really passionate, that's going to boost my energy because you really need energy to do all this. To create, manifest something in the world, it takes a tremendous amount of energy. And so if you can leverage, what things that you're passionate at, some of the things that maybe, you're really, really good at that come natural to you, that's like a high leverage item. I don't know if people are familiar with the 80-20 concept, where people say often that 80% of the results come from 20% of the efforts. So like, what is that for you? What is that powerful 20% that really makes the big difference, and get in touch with that and how can you leverage that to speed things up? And then maybe the things you're not so good at, that's where you fill in with resources. So those are a lot of different things I think people can think about. Also, one more really important thing is about I believe I'm a strong believer in the self-fulfilling prophecy. So that you really want to pay attention to what you think about yourself at a very kind of deep level, because that really drives you in a way, because you keep checking in with that voice. So if you really believe deep down, I'm meant to do this, I'm meant to succeed, and that voice is that's going to give you the will and the energy to try and overcome these hurdles that are definitely going to happen. If you believe deep down that you're not going to succeed, then you're going to see these failures as just validating your preconceived notion that you weren't going to make it anyways, and you're going to give up. Because it's all about willing and pushing through the obstacles that those are the people who succeed in the end. It's not just about talent. I think a lot of the research has said that grit, this idea of grit and grinding through the difficult time, is really one of the key success for most people to kind of push through and ultimately succeed. So I think that's really, really kind of important. So yeah, those are some of my thoughts on that topic.
Wow. I'm just sitting here. I'm like really having so much gratitude in my heart for you, Jonathan. Those are fantastic, points and not only ideas and help. I mean, you've given us like an amazing program on this 45-minute call. I'm just very grateful. And I definitely encourage all of our listeners to come back and re-listen to this and really take in the advice that he's given, because he's given some profound layers of help. I just, again, deeply grateful. And, one thing I think you said and highlighted, though you probably used a different word, but the word that came to my mind was sustainable. What you are creating with all the, again, layers of advice, the steps that you took, the steps that you're offering them to take to reach their project, was this sustainable change, and not only sustainable change, but sustainable project that you're able to reval, get feedback, listen, have a support network. It just really leads to, success. How could you fail with those layers in place? And that is just, wow, Jonathan, I am so impressed. Now that leads me to my last question here, and that
Sure.
is, can we, because now I'm inspired, I definitely want to come sign up on your site. Do you have like a newsletter sign up? Do you send out notifications? Do you how is your site designed, or do we just go to it to look at it? What is your thoughts, or how have you set that up?
Yeah, so I have implemented a spot on the website, I think it's on the right-hand side, where you can sign up to either get a newsletter or an RSS feed. So I think if you have an RSS, you'll just email it. So that is definitely one way to get in touch. Can definitely, Facebook is a big platform for me. People can friend me on Facebook, and also my link to Modeling the Way. And the YouTube channel. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll get the updates of the videos as they come out. So there's a lot of different ways in today's modern social hyper-connectedness social media platforms. So any of those work.
Perfect. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am so thrilled to have had you. I knew this was going to be awesome, and it was. It was amazing. And I just, deep gratitude, deep bow to you, actually, for all that you've offered this evening. And hugs everyone out there that's listening. You guys had a good one. Come back and listen again. And we look forward to having you again next month with another wonderful show like this one here with Jonathan. So good night, everyone. And we will talk to you next month. Bye, Jonathan. Bye, everyone.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.